Imagine a childhood home with fewer words than questions. A house where love is present, but rarely spoken, where discipline is clear, expectations are firm, and emotions are implied, not explored. Growing up with only a father doesn't automatically mean trauma. Many fathers are devoted, protective, hard-working, and deeply loving. But love is not just what is provided. Love is what is modelled. And when one parent is missing, especially a mother, the child's nervous system grows up adapting to an incomplete emotional map. Because here's the truth most people never talk about. Children don't just learn how to behave from parents. They learn how to feel from them. And when a child is raised by a father alone, the emotional environment often becomes shaped by three forces: strength over softness, control over expression, survival over emotional exploration. Not because fathers don't care, but because many fathers were never taught how to translate feelings into language. So the child learns early. Love exists, but it's quiet. And quiet love shapes the psyche in very specific ways. One of the first psychological imprints in a father-only household is emotional compression. The child learns to contain themselves. They may be fed, protected, educated, encouraged. But when sadness appears, when fear rises, when confusion surfaces, there is often no emotional mirror to reflect it back. No one saying, "I see you. It makes sense that you feel this way. You don't have to be strong right now." So the child adapts. They become self-regulating far too early. They stop asking emotional questions. They stop expressing needs that feel inconvenient or confusing. This isn't independence. This is premature emotional maturity. And from the outside, it looks impressive. Teachers say, "They're so responsible. They're so mature for their age. They don't cause trouble." But internally, something quieter is happening. The child begins to associate love with performance, not presence, with being good, not being real. Another major psychological pattern that forms is instrumental bonding. In father-only homes, connection often happens through activity, not conversation. Fixing things together, playing sports, doing chores, accomplishing tasks. Love becomes something you do, not something you feel together. This trains the child's nervous system to believe that closeness is earned through usefulness. So later in life, they may struggle with emotional intimacy that has no task attached to it. Silence feels safer than vulnerability. Doing feels safer than feeling. Providing feels safer than opening. And without realizing it, they may grow into adults who struggle to talk about emotions, feel uncomfortable being emotionally supported, equate love with responsibility rather than connection. Not because they're cold, but because emotional language was never fully installed. There's also a subtle grief that lives in father-only childhoods, even when the father is loving. It's the grief of missing contrast. A mother's presence often introduces emotional softness, verbal reassurance, relational intuition, permission to feel without fixing. When that energy is absent, the child doesn't always know what is missing, only that something feels undefined. So the psyche fills in the gap with imagination, idealization, or emotional self-reliance. Some children romanticize the absent parent. Others suppress the longing entirely. Both are survival strategies, because wanting what you can't have feels dangerous when you're young. So the child learns not to want too much. As adolescence begins, another psychological shift occurs. The child, now more self-aware, starts comparing their inner world to others. They notice other kids talk to their mothers. Other kids cry without shame. Other kids are comforted without explanation. And a quiet belief forms, something about me must be different. This belief doesn't always become conscious, but it becomes structural. It shows up as emotional guardedness, difficult asking for help, hyper-responsibility, fear of being a burden. The child becomes emotionally self-sufficient, not because they want to be, but because they had to be. Here's the most important psychological truth of this stage. Growing up with only a father often produces adults who are incredibly strong, but unsure how to rest. They know how to endure. They know how to push. They know how to survive. But they don't always know how to be held. And that gap doesn't disappear with age. It simply waits for adulthood to reveal itself. Because eventually, the child grows up. And the question is no longer, how did I survive? It becomes, why do I feel disconnected even when things are going well? That's where the deeper patterns emerge. By the time a child raised by only a father reaches adulthood, something invisible is already wired deep into their nervous system. They don't just have memories, they have patterns. Because childhood isn't remembered as facts. It's remembered as emotional reflexes. And one of the strongest reflexes formed in a father-only upbringing is this: I should handle things on my own, not as a belief, as a bodily truth. This is where attachment theory enters the story. Attachment is the subconscious system that decides how safe intimacy feels, how much closeness you can tolerate, whether needing someone feels comforting or threatening. Many people raised by single fathers develop what psychology calls avoidant or self-reliant attachment patterns. Again, this isn't pathology, it's adaptation. If emotional comfort wasn't consistently verbalized, the child learned to regulate internally. If vulnerability wasn't modeled, the child learned to minimize it. If asking for reassurance didn't lead anywhere, the child stopped asking. So love became associated with distance that doesn't abandon, and that has consequences later. In adult relationships, this often shows up in subtle but powerful ways. They may struggle to open up emotionally, even with people they trust, feel uncomfortable when a partner wants deep emotional closeness, pull back when relationships become too intimate, feel safest when they are needed, not when they are known, because being needed feels familiar. Being emotionally seen feels exposing. They may deeply love their partner, but still feel claustrophobic when asked questions like, "What are you feeling? What do you need right now? Can you lean on me?" Not because they don't want connection, but because their nervous system never learned that connection could be soft. There's another pattern that often forms: emotional minimalism. People raised by only a father often learned that emotions should be contained, managed, solved, or ignored. So they may downplay their own feelings. It's not that bad. I'll deal with it. It doesn't matter. They become experts at emotional efficiency, but relationships don't thrive on efficiency. They thrive on expression, and this creates an internal conflict. They want closeness, but closeness requires exposure. So they may oscillate, pulling people in, then pulling away, wanting intimacy, then craving solitude. This isn't inconsistency. It's an unresolved attachment dance. Romantically, this upbringing can lead to two very different partner choices. Some are drawn to emotionally expressive partners, people who feel deeply, who talk openly, who bring warmth and softness into the relationship. At first, this feels healing, like finally accessing something missing, but over time, it can feel overwhelming. Too many feelings, too much emotional demand. So the relationship becomes polarized. One feels too much, the other feels not enough. Others go the opposite direction. They choose emotionally reserved partners, people who don't ask many questions, people who respect independence, people who don't need reassurance. This feels peaceful, stable, low pressure. but slowly emptiness creeps in. Because emotional safety, without emotional depth, becomes quiet loneliness. Another under-discussed effect is difficulty receiving care. Adults raised by single fathers often feel uncomfortable being nurtured. Compliments feel awkward. Support feels unnecessary. Being taken care of feels undeserved. They're great at giving, terrible at receiving, because somewhere deep inside is a belief: if I need too much, I'll be a burden. So they minimize needs. They delay asking. They wait until they're exhausted. And then they wonder why relationships feel one-sided. And there's also grief here. Not dramatic grief, not conscious grief, but unprocessed absence. Even if the father did everything right, even if he sacrificed, even if he loved deeply, the psyche still notices what wasn't there. And when that grief isn't acknowledged, it doesn't disappear. It turns into emotional numbness, over-functioning, chronic self-reliance, fear of emotional dependency. Because needing someone reminds the nervous system of a time when one parent was missing. Here's the paradox. People raised by only a father often grow into strong adults, responsible partners, loyal friends, dependable employees. But inside, many feel emotionally unsheltered. They can survive storms, but they don't always know how to rest inside someone else's presence. And that's where the real work begins. Because awareness doesn't come from blaming the past. It comes from decoding it. Healing doesn't start with anger. It starts with permission. Permission to name what existed and what didn't. Because one of the deepest emotional conflicts for people raised by only a father is this: if I admit something was missing, does that mean I'm betraying him? And the answer is no. Love and absence can coexist. Gratitude and grief can live in the same body. You don't have to rewrite your childhood as tragic to acknowledge its psychological impact. The first step in healing is reframing strength. For a long time, strength meant not needing help, not showing emotion, handling things alone, staying composed. But emotional maturity asks for a different definition. Real strength is allowing yourself to be seen, letting someone support you, expressing needs before exhaustion, trusting that closeness won't erase you. This is uncomfortable at first, because your nervous system learns safety through self-reliance, so vulnerability may feel like weakness, dependence may feel like danger, but discomfort isn't danger, it's unfamiliarity. The second step is learning emotional language. Many adults from father-only homes don't lack feelings. They lack vocabulary, so start small. Instead of, I'm fine, try, I'm overwhelmed. I feel disconnected. I'm tired in a way sleep won't fix. Name sensations before stories. Tight chest, heavy stomach, restlessness, numbness. This reconnects you to your body. And intimacy begins in the body, not the mind. The third step is retraining how you receive care. When someone offers help, notice the urge to refuse. When someone listens, notice the urge to minimize. When someone stays, notice the urge to pull away. These reflexes aren't flaws. They're protective habits that once kept you stable. Thank them. Then gently challenge them. Receiving is a skill, and like any skill, it feels awkward before it feels natural. For those who become parents, this work becomes even more important. Because without intention, we pass down what we normalized. Children raised by emotionally self-reliant parents often learn, don't bother others with feelings, be strong early. Love means providing, not expressing. So healing isn't just personal, it's generational. You don't need to become someone you're not. You just need to add what was missing. More words, more emotional mirrors, more permission to feel without fixing. And now, the most important truth. Healing does not mean rejecting your father. Many single fathers carried impossible weight. They provided under pressure. They loved with the tools they had. They did not choose emotional absence. They inherited it. Understanding the impact of your upbringing doesn't diminish their effort. It contextualizes it. And when you stop protecting the past, you free the present. The goal isn't to become softer or harder. It's to become whole. To be someone who can. Stand alone without isolation. Love deeply without fear. Be strong without silence. Be connected without losing autonomy. Because growing up with only a father didn't break you. It shaped you. And now you get to choose what stays and what finally gets added. If this series resonated, you're not alone. Many people are only now discovering that strength without emotional safety is still survival. And survival is not the same as living.